There we go. Boom. Okay, now you should be hearing me on both sides. Good stuff. All right, so it looks like the audio is going through. We are live now. This is awesome. Okay, and anybody can jump in if you want to jump into Discord and participate. I do want to check to make sure everybody can hear me. So anybody that is currently in the Discord, is that Chris over there lurking? If you guys could just send a quick message and let me know that you guys can hear me in Discord, because I know last week we had some issues with Discord, but I want to make sure that that everybody here can hear me. It's definitely coming through on X, and I think it's also coming through on Telegram. Let me see here. Are we streaming on Telegram? I'm just curious. Oh, we got all kinds of stuff happening in Telegram. So it may not be streaming in Telegram. But actually, I wonder if I can go ahead and just start it in Telegram. I know we're doing the RTMP stream here. So I'm going to hop into Telegram real quick and try to push that. And then we're going to get right to our update, shall we? Let me go ahead and do a stream with. There we go. Start streaming. Let's see if this is coming through on Telegram as well. Should be popping through. Yeah, looks like it's working. Now the question is how do I shut it up? Because it's running in the background now. So the stream's running in both Telegram and X. Woohoo, we figured it out. Go to my volume mixer and turn Telegram's audio down. There we go. Okay. We are officially live now. Everything's running. Lots of stuff going on this week. You can probably hear my voice is a little ragged. We've been running nonstop, late nights, lots of things going on. My camera is not working. It's being dumb. And so I think it's one of those things where I just got to restart my my camera to do it, restart my computer to do it. But feel free to hop right in. If you want to engage, you can ask any questions you want in the general chat or in the Tashi stage chat. And I'm happy to answer whatever questions you guys have. We'll reserve a little bit of time for Q&A toward the end. This call, I kind of want to make it a weekly thing just to keep everybody up to date with all of the activity that's happening. And if there's anything that you have a question on, oh no, do we have an issue with audio again? I just saw Juan's response there. This might be a recurring thing with Discord. I don't know what's up with that. This audio is going great over the streams, but people might not be able to hear me in Discord. And the whole point is like if you're in Discord, you can chat. Okay, I'm going to do what we did last week. I'm going to stop this the Discord, and then I'm going to start it again. Okay, why don't we try that? We are going to end the stage for everybody, and then we'll restart it again. Y'all join back in. Let me know if you can hear me. Obviously, Discord is hearing. Obviously, Discord is hearing me, but the people on the other end of the stage are not. So let's go ahead and end stage here. And we're going to start the stage. Let's see if there's a continue. Let's just say weekly update. Sure. Boom. Doom. 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 All right. Let me know if you guys can hear me now. What is this one here? Oh, show requests. Can you guys hear me okay now? Yeah. Okay. So I don't know what it is. It seems that anytime we kick off a scheduled Discord stage, it doesn't seem to capture my audio. But if we restart the entire stage, so maybe that's just what I need to do each week, is I just need to start it from scratch. And that's okay. So, all right, we are in. I'm so glad you guys can hear me. This is so important to me that you guys can hear what I'm saying, but also ask questions real time. And some of you, if you've got things to bring up, I see a few friends in the audience already that I might want to bring up if you guys are up for it. But it's always good just to catch up in the community. But I think this update every week, it can be as long or as short as we need it to be. And I say that because some weeks we're going to have lots of updates, and some weeks we're going to have fewer updates, and some weeks we're just going to talk about a lot of the things that we're focusing on, maybe more casually and less formal updates. But let's get right down to the first set of updates that I think are critical. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into our Telegram and share that screen. I think the most important update people are going to want to hear right now is this update. So it's still streaming for you guys, but I am going to come back to Discord so y'all can see it. There we go. So this is a big update. This one in particular, I think maybe people were anticipating, but it's something that we thought very long and hard about, and that was moving our TGE to Q1. I'll give you a little bit of background on this, maybe a little bit of insight. We quite literally today we're handing over all of the metadata to Metaplex to get our Launchpad and our TGE and even our airdrop ready to go. So we had everything prepared. We were going to be ready to go a week in advance so that next week we would have been able to launch our TGE. Everything is technically and functionally ready to launch. The problem is this is not the best market to launch a new product. And I don't know that that would be fair to you guys on the TGE side from a token perspective to launch in the market that it is. We were trying to be a little bullish on our own product and say, it really doesn't matter what the rest of the market is doing. We're a good product. We've got revenue that is coming in and that will be coming in more as we go to market more. We've got technology that's deployed. Like, we were kind of bullish on the business side of this, and maybe we let a little bit of that bullishness carry over into the token side of it. But we spent all weekend deliberating, talking to investors, talking to advisors. It was almost unanimous. Like, maybe there was one person that was a little wobbly on the response, but almost everybody unanimously agreed that we should probably hold off on the actual token launch. Just because it wouldn't be fair to those people that got in early, and even those of you that are getting involved now. If there's a downward momentum, you guys aren't getting the best opportunity out of the token launch. So it was not an easy decision, but it was made, and so we are now pushing our TGE out to Q1. Now, what does that mean for all of you that are participating in missions? Well, there will be an adjustment to missions. Obviously, we can't do an airdrop before TGE. So we were talking about doing an airdrop as part of season 1's missions at the end of December, mid to end December. Obviously, you can't do an airdrop when there aren't tokens in the market. So that will be adjusted. We'll end up doing the airdrop shortly after TG. And I think that was really the timing that we were planning for anyway, right? The timing we were planning for was a few weeks after TGE, we were going to do an airdrop, which is why we were saying end of December. So now that TGE has moved back into Q1, we will go ahead and push our airdrop out to then. Now, keep in mind, we just closed a seed round. We're on a good pace. We've got a good runway and a good roadmap, and our business plans aren't changing, right? This doesn't affect Tashi as a product or as a company. We are going to continue to push forward with the supply development, meaning incentivizing nodes to participate in the network, and then also on the demand side. So yesterday I spent all day in San Francisco talking to robotics companies and some AI companies about how do we incorporate Tashi into their technologies and where the value propositions are there. So the business is going to continue moving forward. I just want to make sure that it's absolutely clear. TGE is going to get postponed for a little bit. Again, we were really, really going to be pushing for next week. We had made that announcement just a few weeks ago, actually. Um, so it is with heavy heart that we do that, but it is not without much consideration, which we did. We were, oh my goodness, it was just hours and hours of deliberation and tons of phone calls over the last probably 4 or 5 days, right? So their entire weekend was eaten up with these phone calls and trying to make sure that we made the right decision here. But we still feel very positive. Obviously, we feel positive about the project because the business is moving forward. And that's what this is really about. The goal here is to generate revenue and to distribute that revenue to our node participants as payments for the work that they do. So this is really about redefining a new type of business model in a decentralized manner to support this decentralized infrastructure in a very healthy, sustainable way. We're still very much on track for that. The token launch doesn't necessarily affect that as much, but it is something that needs to get done before we go into production with the product and start charging customers for real revenue. So anyway, that's the major update today. I wanted to make sure that got out there. And then how that affects the missions season. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. If we don't have TGE coming this month, it doesn't make sense to do our airdrop as a result of our missions for season 1 in December. So that'll have to be after TGE. Now, that being said, we're still having some discussions about how are we going to adjust the seasons? Like, do we continue with season 1 through TGE like we are doing right now? Or do we cut off season 1 sometime later this month and start season 2, which is going to be a whole new set of missions and challenges? Or do we just adjust season 1 and add more missions and challenges now so that we incentivize the right behaviors for the business side? So anyway, all of that stuff will be coming soon. I definitely want to make sure everybody here stays up to date on that. So if there are any questions, happy to answer that. Maybe the next thing that is worth talking about, and you know what? Let me go ahead and share the screen on this one. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. I'm going to share a little bit of a preview with you guys. Something nobody else has seen yet. And I'm not going to share too much of it. It's an alpha. So it's something we've been working very hard on. And that is our executive white paper. So this is just a quick little preview of what is to come. It's still being edited, but you can see it is a complete white paper that explains the technology, the stack, the application, the tokenomics. We're in a really good spot right now. We've effectively finished the white paper. It's, again, going through final tweaks and stuff like that. Very much written in an academic model. So we'll be coming back to this and reviewing the white paper on future updates, but I just wanted to show you guys where this is at. So this is a little bit of an alpha here. We haven't talked about this publicly. I know I've talked on a few different streams about how I'd like to release this this week, but because of the pushback on TGE, we didn't get a lot of time over the last few days to put the final touches on it, but it's pretty much done. There are a few last minute edits that came in last night that I've got to go make some updates and then update this document. But what you'll see is over the next few weeks, we'll be updating our documents section of our website, as well as publishing the actual white paper. And so I suspect in one of these community updates, we'll go through what I'd like to do is through the next few community updates, go through a section at a time, maybe even schedule one section per community update to go through and talk about the details of the white paper and take any questions that anybody has on why things are structured the way they are. So always happy to go through the white paper, answer questions on that. But yep, this is coming up very, very quickly. As soon as we get this done, I suspect it's going to be after Thanksgiving. Now that we've got Thanksgiving coming up here in the US this weekend. So that's, I guess, a point to make. You know, Thursday, Friday is Thanksgiving. So there's going to be a chunk of the team who's not going to be actively working for the last 2 days of this week. And plus all of the work we've been doing with the deliberation over TGE this last weekend has kind of eaten into putting the final touches on the white paper. But we are almost there. Doesn't it look great? Looks very professional and academic and stuff. So yeah, we're going to be dropping this, I suspect, in the next 2 weeks. And so look forward to this, and then we'll be talking about it more on future community updates. Okay. What else should we talk about? I know that we've got, I can maybe share a little bit about what I was doing yesterday in San Francisco. Met up with Nils from Aoki. He was in town. And so we went and checked out a few different projects there. One in particular that was really exciting was one called Dimensional OS. They're a robotics infrastructure, a robotics frameworks company, and their whole thing is making robots much easier to develop on top of. They've basically abstracted away a lot of the APIs and interfaces from robotics manufacturers and built kind of a common framework so people don't have to like rip their hairs out navigating the SDKs. And there's a natural fit for multi-robot coordination. And we had a great discussion about what autonomous swarms or autonomous clusters of robots look like. And so there's some discussion that's just starting right now, but I'm excited to further that discussion. I just want to keep you guys up to date on some of the street work that we're doing to get these things out into the wild and to make sure that we validate the value of this multi-device coordination, but B, also to make some real inroads into integrations and adding things to the roadmap and stuff like that. So it was a very productive day, very busy, lots of conversations with different projects about how Tashi could be beneficial in the robotics space. Had another discussion with someone in the AI space, and that actually took an interesting turn. I don't want to get too technical on it. I will get as technical as you guys allow me. But, we were thinking about where does Tashi fit in the AI discussion? We'd already been discussing with certain projects, including like Hashgraph Online, this idea of decentralized AI registries. So registries for agents and MCP servers, and using Tashi as the substrate for the decentralization of almost like a DNS for AI agents and MCP servers. So that's already been in discussion. We've already been working on that, and that solution has a chunk of it already built and going to market. But the real question was like, is there anywhere else in AI where this kind of decentralized coordination could be useful? And we had a really good discussion about the inference side of it. Now, I'm a little bit hesitant to say that inference really needs this kind of multi-master configuration. But the AI expert I was talking to was mentioning how there are some temporal requirements to AI inference that really haven't been addressed in AI yet, that our solution might actually be able to be a good fit for, and adding some value into AI. Basically, when you ask AI a question, it doesn't know necessarily the value of the evolution of the underlying data, right? Because things change over time. That's the temporal aspect of data. And AI is trying to make sense of stuff for you and answer things, but sometimes it doesn't understand the difference between something that happened in the past and something that happened recently and how those two things evolved from each other. And so he's very much focused on the idea of temporal memory in AI and the fact that we have some of those properties that get baked into our consensus algorithm from an ordering perspective, that it could facilitate some of that multi-data source temporal sorting pre-processing into AI. So I don't want to get too technical on it, but it's a much deeper discussion that I hadn't even thought about until I had this discussion yesterday about how we could be supporting training and inference in the AI side from a Tashi perspective. So there's a good chance. Like, I know a lot of people want to say, oh, we can do data synchronization, right? So, but I think we've kind of solved that historically. I don't know that we need a real-time coordination layer for that kind of stuff. Maybe people do want it. Where we do need it is on the discovery and registry side, that's for sure. But I was trying to find the real fit for the actual AI training and inference side. And I think this is it. And so we're kind of exploring that as well. That's a very, very nascent discussion. But there seems to be an organic fit and a need for this. And what I'm kind of realizing is that there is a general need for synchronization of data across trust boundaries. And that's becoming a term that we're using more and more. The idea of what is Tashi doing? Tashi is allowing parties to synchronize their data sets across trust boundaries. And that can include configuration and coordination data. And I always give the example of like search and rescue robots. Is there a scenario where robots have AI baked into them, and you can cluster up a bunch of robots who are owned by different people, who are manufactured by different companies, who maybe are running something like Dimensional OS, right? The company that we went and visited yesterday, that has Tashi functionality baked into it. So now you have these robots that are manufactured by different people, owned by different people, and you can say, I need 5 robots to be provisioned. Here's the task. You robots figure out how to accomplish the task, divide the effort between each other, scan the environment, plan the execution of it, and then go and execute, and then validate each other. And this is a piece that's been coming up that's really important, is when you have multiple devices that are owned by different parties, those parties' interests may not be aligned, which means that it's not always going to be the case that the robots are going to do, your robot isn't always going to do what I want to do because I've got my own robot. So the question is, how do we assign tasks or work to these clusters of robots, these autonomous clusters of robots? How do we coordinate the planning process of completing a job? And then how do we negotiate the execution and validate the execution and pass proofs back? So if a robot starts to go haywire and starts doing its own things, then the other robots are observing that. And they're creating a signed state. They're signing a cryptographic hash of the state of the job completion and where every other robot is in the completion of that. So it's really interesting. Now, the kind of the cool thing is we're a little bit early to this, right? Because everybody is talking about teleoperation. Everybody's talking about taking commands from central servers in the robot space. Not a lot of people are thinking about fully autonomous, on-site autonomous robots at the very edge. And that's where we're kind of positioned very nicely to be super early and a major player in that. So that was a really interesting conversation yesterday, seeing this company that specializes in robot operating systems and kind of adding an easy-to-use veneer over a lot of the APIs and SDKs that robotics manufacturers put out, and talking through some of those use cases. So we were kind of joking about there's a robot fight league out there where people like program their robots and they fight, and it's different than maybe the robotics competitions you see. This is more bipedal, humanoid style robots that are fighting. And then there's this discussion about, wouldn't it be crazy if we could have like a quintet style fight league where you have like 5 robots coordinating with each other to fight 5 other robots, and we could really show off what Tashi can do. So anyway, excellent meetings yesterday, and then I ended up getting home a little bit late, so I'm a little bit worn out from yesterday's activities, but lots of progress going on. Okay, so that's everything that I wanted to put out, so that everybody can kind of get up to date. Specifically, the TGE change is probably the most important thing that I wanted to bring up today, being that we're moving that to Q1 now instead of next week. And again, that's after much deliberation. That is also going to affect the missions, so we'll be announcing some of the changes on the missions. And then I wanted to share a little bit of alpha on the white paper. So now I'm going to kind of open it up to Q&A. So anybody that wants to ask any questions in Discord, feel free. Discord is kind of what I'm watching right now. So if you are communicating with me over anything other than Discord, I may or may not be able to see it. I see a couple people in X commenting, but yeah, it looks like mostly in Discord is where people are at. So maybe a question to answer is one. Let's see, Juan, did you have a question here, or do you want me to answer the question you asked earlier, which was, I know that there's a question. I know there was a question previously about the requirements for participating in the airdrop. By the way, we're going to be talking more about the airdrop over the next few weeks, but I know if you are earning XP, the experience points in our missions program, then you are qualified for the airdrop. And so as soon as we announce when that happens, you guys will be able to claim those tokens and participate in that. Aether Edge and Tashi. Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the discussions we're having with Aether, so from a very pragmatic perspective, the objective of that relationship is to be able to run Tashi software on Aether Edge nodes. And that's part of the discussion we've been having with almost all of our hardware partners. We do actually have an announcement that's coming out very, very soon, and it'll probably be in next week's community update. We have another hardware partner who has a good deployment of physical hardware devices that will be launching Tashi nodes on their devices. So if you are an Aether Edge owner or you are a node operator for this other partner we'll be announcing, they will be running Tashi nodes and earning the Tashi token and reward points when we get to the point of launching the reward points. So that's a great question. I think this kind of leads into a little bit more of our business strategy as well. Remember that season 2 of our missions program is really focused on building that supply. We're doing that now, but season 2 is going to be hyper focused on that. So all of the rewards in the missions program are going to be focused on building that supply. And that supply is numbers of nodes that are operating, running the Tashi software. That could be running on your gaming computer. It could be running on your MacBook. It could be running on a Raspberry Pi, or you might be paying for a virtual private server somewhere, or you might be hosting a device from one of our partner DePINs. And we'll be putting out a list of the DePINs that are Tashi compatible. So you'll be able to see that. Aether Edge is one of the ones that we have a partnership. We've announced that that's the strategy. I know we've kind of toyed with the idea of the GeoNet WingBits devices also running Tashi as a node, because there's the equivalent of something like a Raspberry Pi worth of compute on that. That one's not locked in yet. I see Teddy in here as well with Rover and GeoNet. So that one's not locked in yet, but that's the kind of relationship we're building. And we always talk about how we want to run on other people's DePIN hardware, because here's the reality is in DePIN, you are a small piece of a big revenue puzzle. So each person might be receiving pennies a day, maybe dollars a week or a month. It's not a lot per problem that you're solving, but you've got the resources available to solve lots of problems in the world. And so why don't we activate multiple problem sets on your device and get you paid on all of them? And now you're turning from pennies to dollars a day, right? So that's the plan, is how do we in DePIN bring together a lot of these DePIN players to all participate and multi-mine, if you will, their tokens and rewards. So that's where we're standing right now. I'm very happy with the new TGE roadmap. Thank you. Better opportunities for late joining people like you. Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's the direction we really want to go with this new announcement and with the missions program, is we really want to incentivize people who are even joining late to participate more actively. But those who joined early, we want to make sure that they're getting recognized and rewarded appropriately. All right. Nulch, you had a question here. If you decide to switch pre-TGE earnings from season 1 to 2 or any other decisions, will the XP from season 1 be fixed? E.g., example, now variable XP from having nodes turned on, getting fixed and don't get deducted if a node turned off in January. Don't want to turn anything off, but for understanding the approach. Getting fixed and don't get deducted if a node turns off in January. So there's been some wonkiness, I think, in the tracking on the dashboard of node activity, and that's all gotten fixed. I mean, this is alpha, but keep in mind what the dashboard is showing is not necessarily what we're observing. So our orchestrators are actually keeping track of how long every node is on. And so we are tracking that data. So now there might be some changes. For example, in season 2, I suspect that instead of just doing referrals to connect wallets, we're going to do referrals for people spinning up nodes, right? So if you refer somebody and that person spins up a node, you'll get rewarded with more XP versus referring somebody who just connects their wallet. Right now we're in the awareness phase, and the next phase is going to be about spinning up devices. So I'm not sure exactly what your concern is there, Nulch. They will be distinct in separate seasons. You will get your XP from season 1, which will be associated with season 1 airdrops. Anything you've done through now, we are going to be publishing a validator so that you can validate all of the XP that you've received and go, okay, I see why I'm getting rewarded for certain activities. And so that way people can kind of see where they stand and kind of audit themselves and see what we see. Because the orchestrators are really the source of truth. The orchestrator is what is coordinating multiple resource nodes for different jobs and tracking and monitoring their uptime and their availability. And then that gets passed over to a separate system that is responsible for tracking XP. Well, that separate system is kind of like we're building that plane in flight, right? It's important because we want you guys to see what you're earning. But if something breaks there, it's not critical because we can always recover from the orchestrator's data. And so that has been the case historically. There have been a couple times where the dashboard, the node dashboard, was showing that, like, for example, you had no XP or you had no nodes online. But the reality is that you did, and you do have XP. And all we had to do is rebuild that data from the orchestrators, and it was fine. So we have redundancy in the orchestrator level. We don't have any redundancy in the XP dashboard, but that's okay. But when we create the validator, that'll allow you to see exactly what you're earning for. So you'll be able to pull that from the sources and see exactly what's going on. And that's how we're going to be doing the rewarding. I get that people were a little bit concerned about the misuse of the XP system with spinning up multiple wallets and then referring to themselves. Honestly, that's not a huge problem, especially if people are building bots. There are ways to detect bots that we have applied, and we've been able to eliminate a huge chunk of those wallets from the XP program because they were clearly bots. And so there are different ways to detect that, and we've applied some of those methods. So rest assured, while we're not going to catch everybody who's spinning up multiple wallets and connecting their wallets and capturing a little bit of that referral bonus, we're catching a good chunk of them and able to pull that out of the equation. But again, this period is all about awareness. So if we get a chunk of people doing that and a majority of people actually talking about us, actually one thing I'm seeing that I'm really liking is whenever there's a post about Tashi, somebody from the community is posting the referral link and saying, yeah, you guys got to check out this project. Click on this to go start earning rewards. I really like that. You know, you could say that like somebody's injecting their referral link onto somebody else's post, but yeah, that's great. Like, let's get the awareness out there. That's what season 1 is all about. But to your point, Nulch, you're exactly right. When we go into season 2 and it's all about supply, the reward is going to be focused on people who spin up nodes. So if you refer somebody and that person spins up a node, then you're going to get rewarded for that. All right. There's a question that's not on here, but is in the general and tech chat that I want to just bring up real quickly. And then I'll leave it at that unless there are other questions. So feel free to ask any questions if you've got any. But there's one in particular about managing ports and multiple nodes on premises. Maybe it's worth talking a little bit about how the nodes are operating right now. When you spin up a node, there are a couple ways to spin up a node. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can just pull up the docs. I'm just going to pull up the docs for nodes. Node installation, and then share screen. All right. So in node installation, there's a few ways to do this. You can use our installer script, which is this thing right here, right? I think most people, well, even before we get to that, right? Even before we get to that, there is the one-click node installers that you can do. If you're on a dashboard, you can click the one-click node installer. Actually, let me see if I can pull up that too. Yep, there it is. So You can see here that we have the one-click node installer right here. This is EaseFlow is our primary partner. We've got other places that you can also deploy with, like with Node Garden, Nodes Garden, and a few other places. Or you can use the CLI to deploy it. So the one clicks are pretty straightforward, right? You click, you pay somebody rent to use their devices to get that launched. If you want to deploy a node on your own hardware, you can do this very simple script here. This is great if you've got one node in your home and you want to deploy a node, or you've got a device in your home you want to deploy Tashi node to, and you're just going to use it that way. There are a few people who are trying to deploy multiple devices in their home, which we appreciate, and it's great. The only problem is that the public IP address for your home, there's only one public IP for multiple devices. So the orchestrators don't necessarily know how to route to that. Now, just kind of a quick, structural point on this is that this installer script does a few things. It spins up, I believe it's 2 Docker nodes, one to start all of the cryptography stuff, and the one to spin up the actual node after the cryptography stuff has been done. So there's a lot that happens inside this install script, right? And it's very easy to use. It's kind of like middle level savviness when it comes to using command line, so it works really well. But if, for example, you're a more advanced user and you're like, you know what? Here, let me move some screens out of the way so I can see stuff here. You're like, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit more fancy. I want to just use the underlying Docker. You can do that. You can actually install everything with Docker. Let me see if there's a clear way, because most of this is happening with the interactive script installer. And there are privileged things you got to work for and stuff like that. Maybe it's under important notes. Yeah, okay. So here's the manual stuff for Docker, but this is mostly about manually updating if you wanted to. But you can actually go and manage the Docker instances themselves. So the installer script is a wrapper for the Docker install, but you can actually install the Docker itself directly, or Podman, whichever way you want to do it. You can install it directly, and there's a bunch of stuff you can do additionally when you are setting up a node with Docker. Now, we don't have the docs published for how to set it up with Docker because it is more complex. We wanted to get the install script out nice and easy. There are some direct Docker commands you can do. Now, inside of Docker, there is actually a binary running that is the Tashi node binary. And that Tashi node binary has other options available to it. So Nulch is probably very familiar with this, because if you install the top level script, it expects you to have one device associated with one public IP address. If you install it at the Docker level, you can now do some other fancy things, but there's one feature that you're still missing until you go inside of the Docker container and talk to the binary directly. And that is telling the orchestrator which public IP address and port to talk to. For example, if I've got device number 1 at home, I might want to have port, we'll say 20,001 on my public IP address pointed at that device number 1 inside my house. And I want port 20,002 pointed at device number 2 inside my house. Well, that's fine. You can go and set up port forwarding on your router, and you can even tell your node to start and listen on port 20,001 or 20,002, depending on which device it is. But the orchestrator still thinks that it can only talk to each node on the default port. Well, there is actually a command that allows you to spin up your node and tell your node to tell the orchestrator to talk to it on a different port. And that is not in the docs. That is something that that is coming out in the new updated version of the docs, where we're going to talk about those 3 levels. The top level being, there we go, installation. The top level being the simple install script, which is I have one device at home and I want to spin it up and just make it work. The next level is the Docker, which is, okay, I want to have a little bit more control over my device, so I need to understand all of the Docker commands and all the things. A lot of that is in important notes here for managing it. You can do a lot of those Docker commands. But you can also install the node using Docker instead of using our install script if you're confident with all of the checks that the installer gives you. And then even then, if you're like, you know what, forget Docker, I actually want to use the binary directly. There are a lot of flags you can add to the binary that actually allows you to configure a Tashi node even more than what the install script or the Docker container will do. I will tell you, I have a call tomorrow with our engineering team to put together a plan to build native installers for different operating systems. So all of those configuration options that are available in the binary, one of the primary goals is to map a lot of that network topology that people are trying to install into. So if you have multiple devices at home and you are savvy enough to manage your network router and set port forwarding from the public internet into the devices at home, you should be able to update those device installations as well. So we're working on that as well. That's actually one of the top requirements in building the native installers. So I'll give you guys updates on the native installers as we get there, but I figured I'd bring this up because we get this a lot in our chat, and there might be a little bit of confusion about how that works. Orchestrators have to know which port to talk to at your public IP address in order to interact with your devices in the most fully rewarded way, right? If you just spin up a node at home and the orchestrator can't talk back to your node, but your node can talk to the orchestrator, that's fine. There are certain tasks you can do that way. You just can't be a proxy, which is the highest earning task that a node will do. If you want to do that, you have to open up a port or do port forwarding to that device. And when you do that, there's still a question of, okay, what if I have multiple devices with multiple ports open, but I don't know how to tell the orchestrator which port to talk to this device on? And I think that's the part of the docs that are missing right now, that maybe there's some confusion in Discord about how to resolve. So I'm in the process of writing up a good chunk of that. I know I've sent some people some snippets in Discord, but I think it's useful as we're going through the docs right now, updating with the new branding, with the new white paper and everything. I also want to make sure that we update the docs with those kind of deeper layers of configuration to walk people through what a multi-node configuration with multiple port forwarding looks like. So those of you that are super savvy and interested in running multiple fully active Tashi nodes at home, because you got Raspberry Pis and PCs and MacBooks and all kinds of other computers laying around at home, then we can go ahead and support that as well. Because right now, everything is just geared towards how do I quickly set up a single node? And some of you are just way more advanced than that, and we need to be more proactive about catering to that advanced configuration. So that is definitely on a roadmap to get sorted. All right, cool. That's everything that I have. Let me see here. Nulch, did you have another one here? You said referrals. Do you have new goals to reach before TGE with the move to Q1? Double the actual amount of nodes online, or is it mainly to wait for better market situation and all internal milestones stay checked? So we are that's part of the discussion we're having internally this week and next week. So I mentioned that we just made the decision on yesterday morning my time to move TGE. So and this week is Thanksgiving, so a lot of people are just kind of wrapping up the things that we have planned for the week before Wednesday, tomorrow. And then I think next week is I actually have a call tomorrow to start some of the strategic discussion. But next week we'll settle on some of those updates to our milestones, internal milestones, and how we adjust the mission system, the season 1, to accommodate some of those milestones we want to reach. So the answer to your question is yes, we will be adjusting some of the goals because we've kind of reached a lot of the goals that we set for ourselves for season 1. So we're in a really good spot right now. It's great to see the community participating and engaging. But now that we've got a little bit more time before we go to TGE, we want to make sure that we adjust our goals, keep everybody motivated, and then also adjust the missions in season 1 to reflect those adjustments, so we can really just crank this out, build all of that momentum, so that when the market starts to turn and it makes sense for us to launch TGE, we're just in nothing but an upward momentum position, and that's where we want to be. So great questions, Nulch. Great questions, Juan. Great questions, everybody. Any other questions before we shut this down? Because I know we're just shy of the hour, which is fine. We're at 10:49 my time, which is great. But we're going to keep having these updates. Anybody that wants to participate, you can hop into Discord, and we'll just kind of go through any questions that pop up, answer those, and then and if you're working on a project and you're a partner of ours, and you kind of want to discuss some progress we're making together, then I'm happy to bring you up during these community updates and kind of show stuff off. But always happy to do these AMAs here. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure as always. Everybody, if you have Thanksgiving, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. If I don't hear from you at all otherwise, then everybody have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you next week for next week's community update.